Alright, so this is going to be a normal traffic pattern at St. Louis Downtown Airport. Right traffic, runway 12 right. It says 523 here on the taxiway, but that's just a simulated thing. Obviously we got runway 12 right, have the control tower, have everything used to the way we're seeing it. We've got a nice ramp with some colorful TBMs, which is really nice, much nicer than the normal planes that are sitting there. So perfect, so let's get into the plane. And I've gotten rid of the yokes just so we can see what we're doing inside. And so right about now, we would have already done our run up on the ramp, and we're sitting here just getting ready to take off. And so since it's a G1000 plane here, and I believe this is a 172S model in here, because the speeds align the same way for our 172S. So what we can do in the G1000, just for extra situational awareness, which is great for us in the traffic pattern, it can be really helpful, is if we click nearest here, what it'll do is, it'll show us our nearest airports. And so we see CPS obviously is the closest at half a mile from the center of the airport here. So if we click direct, enter, enter. So what that does is it puts a direct track from us to the center of the airport. What we can also do now is, on the plane, there's an OBS key right here. So we see CDI, and then there's an OBS to the left of it. If we click the OBS, and then we rotate the course needle over here, which is this triangular thing, what we can do is, What we can do is we can rotate this all the way around to the runway heading, which for us is going to be 122. It's actually 122 for this runway. So if we rotate it to 122, what this will do is it will have a pointer, a bearing pointer that shows heading 122 all the time. So we can use it to align ourselves on each leg of the traffic pattern, which is super helpful, especially when we're learning to do this. Super helpful for us. So we got that there, and I'll kind of talk about it a little bit when we're flying the pattern. And so now is when we would do our lights, camera, action before takeoff check. You could do it before or after calling tower. We'll just talk about it doing it before now. So the lights, camera, action that I usually do. By the way, the flaps are down because the simulator does that on me for some reason when I unpause it. But lights, camera, action, pretty much we're just double checking our lights and our mixture before we take off, which is super important that our mixture is rich and that our lights are on, because legally they have to be. So lights. So we just make sure that our strobe lights are on. We've got our landing and taxi light on as well. People can see us easier there. Nav lights, since it's not night, the sun hasn't set, we're okay to leave our nav lights off. And the camera action really is just the mixture. So make sure that the mixture is rich. A lot of times we'll lean it when we're on the ground, but we make sure that the mixture is full forward before we take off. And I usually check that a few times. So lights, camera, action, we're good there. We're good to give downtown tower a call, and we would have already told them on our initial call that we're remaining in the pattern. So, and in real life, this is taxiway Bravo 1. So what we would do is we would key the mic and we would say, downtown tower, Cessna, Papa, Oscar, Oscar, Papa, holding short of runway 12 right at Bravo 1, ready for takeoff. And then the tower will come back to us and say, Cessna, Papa, Oscar, Oscar, Papa, runway 12 right, cleared for takeoff, make right traffic. And then we would say, 12 right, cleared for takeoff, make right traffic, Papa, Oscar, Oscar, Papa. Perfect. So we're good to go there. Lights, camera, action, lights are on, mixture's rich, flaps are up, all that good stuff. Perfect. So we're good to enter the runway. So I will remove the parking brake. You can see there, and we are good to start rolling. Awesome. And so our rotation speed is going to be 55 knots. We're going to come to a complete stop on the runway before we start to take off here. And so what we'll do is usually we could follow those yellow lines. It's hard for me to turn in the simulator, but I usually try to follow them if they're there. And so we get ourselves aligned with the center line, and this looks pretty decent to me, I would say. And there we go, we're perfectly aligned with our bearing pointer heading 122. We're feeling all good here, so now what we're going to do is we're going to increase the RPMs, holding the brakes, up to 2,000. And as we're doing this, we look at all of our engine indications over to the right. Fuel flow is good, oil pressure is good, oil temperature, everything is in the green. Now we can release our brakes and go power full. And immediately the plane is going to want to pull to the left, do the left turning tendency. So it'll just take a little bit of right rudder, and we're just trying our best to keep it on the center line. And And so the airspeed's now alive. It's showing us numbers, so it's alive, and we will rotate at 55 knots. So we're coming up on there. So there's 55. And so now we'll rotate, and we'll allow the plane to accelerate up to VY, and we'll pitch back to maintain VY all the way up to pattern altitude, which is going to be 1400 for us. Should have put that in before. But there's 1400. And so what we're doing now is we're trying our best to stay over the runway center line. And so we can use our bearing pointer to help us there. But again, when we pitch up, it's tough to see, and so simulator doesn't like to maintain the airspeed. So we can kind of look down actually to see landmarks on the ground that we're trying to stay the same distance from. So like we can see the other runway that we're trying to not fly over. And if we keep the runway at the same distance, we'll know that we are still over the runway that we just took off from. And so pattern altitude here is 1,400 feet. And now that we are 300 feet below that, at 1,100, we can make our right turn. And we'll still maintain 74 the best we can. And I usually like to keep the turns, less than 30 degrees, but 20 degrees is fine in the pattern. We'll keep that 74 knots best we can. And there it's coming up on 1,400 feet, so I can reduce the power down a little bit, let the pitch come forward. And about a heading of 210 should be good for us on this crosswind leg of the pattern. Good. So usually about 21 or 2200 RPM should do it for us. It just kind of depends on the day. And so now we're looking out, and we see this gas station area there. Now it's going to want to keep climbing whenever I look away. But so there's a gas station for us. And so I like to fly my traffic pattern, the downwind leg, just to the south of that gas station. So there's a road there. And if we can align ourselves just to the south of that gas station, that puts us on a great 1 mile downwind from the runway. And so let's make this turn here, and we'll keep it coming. Trying our best to maintain 1,400 pattern altitude and 90 knots as we're doing this. And so the reciprocal of 120, 180 degrees opposite of it, is going to be 300 heading, so 302 specifically. So we roll out here 302, we're a little bit fast, so I'll just reduce some power. And if we look over to the runway, we see that it's cutting that strut about halfway up to the top. And so that's good for us. That's a good reference point in these Cessna planes that we can use to give us, what a good downwind distance is there. So that's great. And so we're coming up here on the time where we do our before landing checklist. So there's Bravo 5, which about marks midfield. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the power down to about 1,500 RPM, maybe a little more than that. I'm going to pitch the nose back just a tiny bit to maintain our altitude, and then as the nose wants to come down, I pull the flaps immediately to 10 degrees and just allow ours to start descending. And so we see our touchdown point at the 1,000 footers right there. We're beam it, and now we're starting to descend. That's great, and now we'll do the rest of that checklist. So it's a GUMPS check, gas, undercarriage, mixture, props, which you don't have in seatbelts. So gas, make sure our fuel selectors are good, which it's on both. Undercarriage, the gear is down and welded. Mixture is forward. We don't have a prop lever, just make sure all the seatbelts are on for everyone who's in the plane. GUMPS, G-U-M-P-S. And so we're descending pretty nice here. Usually I like to say in this traffic pattern about 1,200 feet crossing over Highway 3 is pretty good for us, and about 80 knots in this phase. So this is pretty good. I'm happy with it. So here's Highway 3. I believe it's tougher to tell this minute, but I think we just crossed Highway 3, so I'll make this right turn. Maybe I'm a little bit low, and that's all right. Let's give it a little more juice. And so make sure we don't lose much airspeed as we turn on base. Don't pitch back too much, but we can just keep this altitude, just keep it coming down nice and steady here. And so on base, again, we align this HSI pretty much perpendicular to what we're flying. So there we go, 030 should be 90 degrees from 120 degrees there. Perfect. And now we can get our second notch of flaps there, so I'll show it this time. So we go flaps to 20 degrees. Great, and now we can see the runway out in the distance there, and we'll make our turn to head straight there. And so the speed will get a little bit slow because of the lower RPM, so I'll just add a little bit back there. And now I'll make this right turn onto the runway. And so what I really like, there's a power lines right about here. If we cross it at between 800 feet and 900 feet, what that'll do is that'll give us perfect 2 red and 2 white, or 3 white and 1 red on the PAPIs. The simulator doesn't have PAPIs, it just has a VASI display for us. But that's okay. And so now, after we've rolled out, it's okay to go to the approach speed for us of 65. And again, it's tough in the simulator, but I don't like to get to below 70 knots until we're on the final approach. And so there's 65. We've got landing assured. We can definitely tell we're going to make this runway. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the final flap there. So there's 2 and 2, so I'll add a little bit of power back. We're getting a little bit slow, so I'll add a good amount of power there, let it catch up with us. There we go. Pitch forward a little bit, cool, and this is feeling like a pretty decent descent. It's a little tough to maintain it in the simulator perfectly with these turns when you can't really see out. But great, this has been decent. So now we've got the runway made for sure, so as we enter ground effect is when I like to start reducing the power back. And so I can start reducing the power back as we pitch back, as we start to round out. And now, really close over the ground, we pull the power all the way out and we flare. We just hold the nose off and just allow the plane to set itself down nicely, just like it did there. Perfect. And then if we needed to, we could brake and make that first taxiway. But if we're going to do a touch and go, then what we would do then is we would just bring the flaps all the way up, make sure that our trim wasn't anything crazy, feeling good about everything, and then add the power back up to full. Trying to maintain center line as well. Airspeed's still alive. And then we're coming up on 55 rotation speed here, and then we rotate, and then allow ourselves to accelerate up to 74 knots, and then do it all again. So that was a decent traffic pattern there. I kind of lost the airspeed from the base to final area, but that's just difficult to do in the simulator. But I hope this video is helpful, and I can help you with the traffic patterns. If you have any questions, as always, just let me know.